You're listening to another episode of a Mindful Moment podcast. I'm your host, Will Nicholls, and I thank you for taking a moment to be mindful with me. I'm here once again with Brent for the Sagittarius season podcast. Woo! I'm ready for some fire. There's
I'm ready
too much
for
water.
some unexpected changes and the eclipses.
Yeah, no, I feel you. Scorpio season has been intense. It's been kind of nuts, and I'm excited to just. I don't know. I always feel at home in fire sign seasons. My body temperature increased by 5 degrees when the sun moved into Sagittarius, so I've already feel better, especially considering how cold it is here in Canada. So, but we got a really good podcast for you guys today. Both if you're listening to it on the audio, but especially if you're watching it live here on YouTube or watching the replay, as we're going to obviously go through the charts, talk about Sagittarius, what it means to be a Sagittarius. I just gotta throw some love out to the Sagittarius out there because, you know, I haven't actually attracted a ton of Sagittarius men, but I've always attracted a lot of Sagittarius women, and they're beautiful people. They have very nice legs, and yeah, they bring out the fire. I feel like fire signs, we tend to bring that out of each other, just like every other element. So, mad respect, mad love for all the beautiful Sagittarius out there. And if you're tuning in with us live, make sure you let us know where you're tuning in from and what zodiac sign you are, because that's always important. But before we get into it, I just want to say we love and admire you for tuning in with us live and joining us for this live podcast, as well as the fact that this is our second Sagittarius season, I believe. Is it our second or third?
It may be our third, but
I think it's actually our third by now because we started in Cancer season, right? But then that was two.
we sure did.
That was two
Cancer
Cancer
season of
seasons ago,
2018.
2018. So yeah, this is our second Sagittarius season podcast. Ooh, okay. Uh, so yeah, I'm super excited for this. I know Brent's excited for this too, and I mean, just in general, this month is a lot. It's I wouldn't say it's more easygoing, but it's there's a level of intenseness that's similar to what we've been experiencing. I mean, really, this whole year. This year is nonstop, folks. Nonstop. But with eclipse season, we're going to see a lot of new changes, which is really great because I feel like many of us have been really relying on that and desiring that and craving that. So yeah, I just want to say for those, especially the cardinal signs this year, because nothing else needs to be said. But cardinal signs have been feeling it this year, and pretty much by January and late January, we'll start to feel some big shifts for us cardinal folks. And then the mutable reign begins. So I also have quite a bit of mutable energy in me. So yeah,
That's what's to me
that's that.
really interesting about Sagittarius is that it's a mutable fire sign. It's like it kind of makes the most sense for fire to be sort of mutable
Totally.
in its raw essence. That's really what I love about Sagittarius. It's like there's freedom beyond whatever we think is not freedom.
Exactly. And yeah, and I think, right, I guess we're going to get right into it, but the very essence of Sagittarius to me is seeking. It's that journey. It's the seeking journey, and it's the kind of realization of when we don't know enough and we need to know more. And so and also the accomplishment of great things comes through Sagittarius. Really going after the things that we desire. I think mutable fire really brings in that element of, if I need to change to get to what I want to be doing, then I need to change. And if I need to stay the same, then I need to stay the same. There's that flexibility there that's really important to attaining your goals and attaining your desires. So Sagittarius really brings that forth. But the very essence of Sagittarius being immutable fire and kind of moving through the kind of end phase of the zodiac is really about learning how to go from, like when we move from Scorpio to Sagittarius, it's like this big big jump because with Scorpio, we're so used to the darkness and we're so used to the intensity. And Sagittarius is like that kind of aspiration towards the light. It's that aspiration towards the truth. And we have to know what is not change that we can see with moving from Scorpio into Sagittarius, because that is a big shift and that is a big change. We go from fixed water, which is ice, to mutable fire, which is like pure fire. Because fire is, you think of fire, it's like moving, right? It's movement. So that shift is like, I don't know about you guys, but like I literally felt like on the 21st, it was just like a and I'm not saying like things have been that much different because they really haven't been, but it's almost like the gas has been kind of left off a little bit, which is nice. So I appreciate that. But yeah, so the journey of Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter on the personality level, and on the soul center level they're ruled by the Earth. So the journey of Sagittarius is really ultimately about learning how to, you know, when to expand, when to go into the new avenues, the new necessary avenues that are required for expansion and for growth and for evolution and for learning and seeking and gaining that wisdom, and also when to utilize that wisdom, because it's kind of a push or pull. It's like there's a time to learn, there's a time to seek, there's a time to go after the things that we want to go after, and there's a time to integrate and process the information that we're learning. And Sagittarius is really a balance between both of those things. That's the beautiful nature of mutability, is learning when to seek, and when to uh in a sense cultivate a deeper understanding or integration of what information you've already gained and what kind of knowledge you've already accessed, because it's like it is a fine line between when is enough, and now it's time to start integrating that wisdom, versus when do I need to keep knowing more, because it's a never ending journey. There's always more to know, but you have to process what you know in order to really get it sunken in there. Otherwise it's just got too much useless information running around there, and it's not as it when information is not integrated, it's just information. But when information is integrated, it becomes knowledge, it becomes wisdom. And that's like the true essence of Sagittarius, is going after the wisdom, seeking the wisdom, finding the wisdom. And that's that's what I love about Sagittarius and Sag placements. um but the problem is Jupiter, because Jupiter, when we light him up with fire, right? When we light Jupiter up with water, the expression of Pisces versus Sagittarius is very different. Mutable water versus mutable fire, very, very different. You know, um, so mutable fire, when we have Jupiter being ruled by Sagittarius, there's an expansion into knowledge, but it's also sharing. It's sharing, teaching. It's like in order to, well, one thing that my mentor always said to me is, to know is to teach, and to teach is to know. And also, in order to learn something, in order to really learn something, you have to teach it. In order to really teach something, you have to learn it. So that learning and teaching kind of balance or polarity is necessary to really integrating the wisdom, which is what we're going to be doing this whole season. Plus, as we enter into this mutable season, which is also the start of the eclipse toward the end of the year, right? This, like, what we've been saying all year, us astrologers, is that it's going to start with the bang and end with the bang. And it's going to be a crazy, wild goose chase shit show all in between. And it has been. I mean, look at everything that's going on, right? It's been crazy. So now we're coming to the end. And I mean, honestly, this is a beautiful season. Like, it really is. Things are really, really changing. We have so many ingresses. Mercury zooms through Sagittarius and enters into Capricorn towards the end of the season. Venus enters into Sagittarius, Saturn enters into Aquarius, Jupiter enters into Aquarius, Neptune stations direct, and Venus enters Scorpio too, like right as we begin. So we get two Venus ingresses, we get two Mercury ingresses, Um, and then we have the beautiful, lovely Saturn Jupiter conjunction to pretty much finish it off and start off the solstice and Capricorn season. So it's a wild season, but it really doesn't start until like pretty much the end of Sagittarius season is when the fire really starts to kick in. But do you want to kind of just give us a little explanation of how you kind of perceive Jupiter as ruling Sagittarius versus Pisces? Because I think it's important to talk about.
Yeah, so first of all, I like what you're saying here about the idea of integrating the knowledge that we do come across. Because to me, before I even get into Pisces, I almost feel like I have to get into Gemini being the opposite to Sagittarius. Because to me, Gemini is the stream of information that's always flowing to us, that's right here in the present moment. And thinking doesn't begin when we have a flow of thoughts, but thinking actually begins when we begin to analyze and to criticize those thoughts and actually begin to classify what fits to our value system through the types of philosophies that we hold, because not all thoughts are worthy of our time. Some thoughts are small thoughts, and some thoughts are big thoughts. And so the big thoughts are more Jupiterian. And when I come to Jupiter versus or Sagittarius ruling Jupiter versus Pisces, I really like to think about Pisces, Jupiter being like the romantic fairy tale that gets into it's almost like a Disney movie to me. It's almost like this surreal, fantastical world full of mysticism, full of, fairies and deities and all that, which is it's very mystical. It's very much so in the dream world, in that 12th house kind of world. Whereas with Jupiter ruling Sagittarius, it's much more about what is real? What is the logos of the universe? How does God speak something into existence? How can I use my words to create a bigger version of myself, to empower myself, to grow in size, not egoically, but in a way that makes us feel bigger? Versus at times we might feel smaller, we might feel insecure, we might feel very little in the cosmos. But when we say ideas like, I am God, I am an incarnate of the divine, I'm a child of God, then we start to actually say the universe is big, but and we feel small, but in reality we are big because we are also the universe. And I think those kind of ideas are more Sagittarian, Jupiterian, versus the Pisces side is much more about like the what could be's versus, or like even other dimensions and other timelines, that those could be that, versus Jupiter and Sagittarius is much more about expanding consciousness, expanding through experience, expanding through the idea of sharing, the idea of expanding through not having limitations.
Hmm. Yeah, and like for Sagittarius at least, it's really that expansion into the pursuit of knowledge, whereas for Pisces, it's the expansion into kind of that oneness. It's the expansion into still knowledge, but it's like it's a more macro knowledge, whereas Sagittarius, I would say, it's more refined knowledge. It's more specialized. That's why we commonly see Sagittarius as like experiential knowledge with travel and universities and kind of higher learning. So I think all
And
of that
the art of storytelling itself, because that's also
totally.
the nature, right? Like it's what we see in all the movies, but the movies add both those elements. Like a good movie has a great story, but also really compelling cinematics as well for that same reason. And I feel like that's sort of they mix really well. But what rules Pisces on the esoteric level?
What rules Pisces on the
Is it
esoteric
is
level?
it Pluto?
Yeah.
Pluto? So, on the esoteric ruler, Jupiter is ruled by the Earth itself, whereas with Pisces, it's ruled by Pluto, right? And so there's that fundamental difference. It's almost like the knowledge that you get with Jupiter and Sagittarius is the knowledge of the Earth
Hmm.
versus the knowledge of something like Pluto.
Yeah, which is more of that macro kind of knowledge. And also, when we see the whole process of integrating the information and integrating the knowledge is really about, learning how to accumulate, go after the things that we desire, and then stop, recalibrate, say, okay, where do I need to go next? What do I need to be doing next? and then make arrangements for the next thing. It's not quite as like Sagittarius is tend not to be as, I mean, they can be a little over optimistic. That's the kind of downside with Jupiter for sure. But they tend to be more or less focused on, I would say, the whole thrill of the pursuit, as opposed to Pisces are more, focused on the macro thrill of, life itself, the kind of c'est la vie of just enjoying, the whole process, the whole experience. So, I mean, Sagittarius is, that's why they're called the adventurers, and they're the people that are going after the things that they want, and they're the go-getters, they're the people that you want to kind of motivate you and pick you up. They're not as, I wouldn't say they're as nurturing as Pisces perhaps, and definitely not as sensitive, but they're able to bring that fire. I love Sag rising, I love
Yeah.
that as a placement. It's a beautiful placement. Obviously a little challenging for a relationship with that Gemini 7th house, but I get along very, very well. In fact, some of my closest friends are Sag risings, um, or Sagittariuses. But
Yeah,
I
same
think,
here. I love Sag risings. Very fun
yeah,
people.
no, it's always fun people. Yeah, my one friend is literally like the complete, like, absolute definition of Sag rising. Like, hasn't lived in a single place for like probably 4 years. Literally just
Mhm.
travels full time and does his thing, and it's great, and I love seeing it because obviously it inspires you to be around that energy all the time. So, but yeah, I mean, in general, I think the Sagittarius is like on the more conscious side. Sagittarius is our incredible motivators and incredible storytellers and incredibly wise individuals, old souls, in many regards, but also like from a very youthful perspective. Like, it's not like, I think a lot of people think old souls being like grumpy people, and I think sometimes that could be true. Like, I can definitely come off, I think, sometimes as a kind of grumpy old man. I have my moments. If you ask my girlfriend, she'll tell you that I'm secretly a boring grumpy old man who just says crazy shit all the time. But that's what I'm gonna be like when I'm 82. I'm just gonna be pretty much the exact same, just with white hair. I probably like a turban or something like that, and like long white robes, and saying crazy shit to people, looking them dead in the eye, and then yeah. But
That's the nice thing about Sag and Sag rising though too. It's like one of the things that Sagittarius and Sagittarius risings kind of need to step into is that I am an old soul. I'm going to wear this kooky witch hat. I'm going to be a gypsy. I'm going to travel. I'm going to do things that are a little bit different
mhm,
because they're mutable fire. It's like you can't really pin an individual flame in a fire, so it's got to sort of stand out in some sense.
exactly, exactly. And I think, yeah, like, on one hand, on the conscious side of that mutable fire, it's a great thing to always be open minded, when it comes to new information, when it comes to seeking, when it comes to, adventure, and when it comes to trying new experiences. That's a great thing to be open minded to that. But on the kind of not so conscious side, you have complications because there's a lot of uh, aspects in life that require decision. There's lots of aspects of life that require more assertion, and there's lots of aspects of life that require you to kind of be more firm and stand your ground. And I do think the majority of Sagittarius know how to do that when it's needed. But the kind of let's just float through life mentality, it can bite you in the ass, over periods of time, because you want to be going after the things that you want. And I think sometimes when you enjoy the path too much to getting where you want, sometimes you forget that there's an actual goal in mind, because it's I'm too busy smelling the roses. It's like, there's nothing wrong with that, but in the long term, if you actually want to accomplish things, well, you have to accomplish things. You have to follow through with that, and following through for the lovely mutable signs of the world and cardinal signs. That's a very important element to learn. And thank you to the beautiful fixed signs for teaching us that.
Okay, I would like to talk a little bit about the perceived hedonism of Sagittarius, because what I've learned and what I've read and what I've experienced with Sagittarius is that one, Sagittarius, the part of the body that's ruled by is the hips and the thighs. This is where our desires and our desire to even be grounded come from.
Hmm.
And I feel like in Sagittarius, this is one of the places where we actually really learn about following a path that's actually built for us versus carving a new path out that maybe we just wanted to explore through lust, through desire, maybe through substances, maybe through escaping. And there's a lot of need in Sagittarius to learn how to cultivate those desires in ways that don't leave us feeling drained and small. Instead, to learn how to cultivate them in ways that help us to feel bigger and more whole ultimately. What would you add about Sagittarius and hedonism?
I mean, hey, Sagittarius is know how to have fun, right? Sagittarius is know how to be the life of the party and try new things. And you know, there's pros and cons to that. Obviously, the pros are you get to experience a lot, and you usually die with no regrets, maybe a few, but no regrets about not trying things. At least, maybe regrets about overdoing it. But I would say this, you know, when we're on the path and when we're going after the things that we desire, just going back to what I was saying about enjoying the journey a little too much, as if it is possible, you know, and because it requires a balance, you know, it requires a balance of us recognizing the importance of enjoying the process. That's a very, very important element to it. But so is the goal, so is the target, you know, so is the direction. And you know, if you kind of think of just the metaphor, the archetype of the archer, and you know, the whole point of throwing arrows is, yeah, sure, it's fun to shoot arrows, but you also want to get the target. You know, you don't want to just be throwing arrows left, right, and center and hoping that you hit something. You know, you want to hit the target. You want to be able to hit your goal, go after the things that you want, right? Like that's part of the excitement. That's part of the fun. Otherwise, you know, it's like you can get bored pretty much just going at it all the time with no intention in mind. And I think that's the big kind of underlying um, element is intention. You know, when you have no intention, then or it's very confusing. And I think this is a big kind of theme collectively coming up too with transitioning out of Scorpio season into Sag. Is like, you know, what are the core intentions that we want to bring with us moving forward? Now, are eclipse seasons unpredictable? Absolutely. And they bring us into new gateways and new kind of portals that put us into situations that are new and changing, especially with the nodes now in Sagittarius and Gemini, and all these eclipses going to be, you know, related to these mutable signs. I think it's very easy for the change to kind of overwhelm us. And again, if we don't have that intention, then it's very easy to get lost on the path. It's very easy to get lost in pleasure. It's very easy to get lost in chasing pleasure and chasing um, those kind of desires and those impulses. And on one hand, you could justify it by saying, "Oh, well, I just want the experience." But it's like, okay, okay, Becky, you want the experience? Yep. Okay, you want the experience, really. It's like you need to fuck 500 guys to get the experience, or you need to, you know, have a few meaningful relationships to get experience. What do you think is going to give you the best ROI in the long term? You know, that's what I mean about intention. You have to understand the power of intention, and you have to know where you're going. Because if you don't know where you're going, well, as Earl Nightingale likes to say, you know, imagine a ship leaves port without a direction in mind, right? 99 times out of 100, it ain't coming back. It ain't getting to where it needs to go, you know. But a ship that actually knows exactly where it's going, or in this case, a person who actually knows where it is that we want to be going. And it's not that you even have to necessarily know the end goal. Like once you launch the arrow, you don't know with 100% certainty that you're going to hit the target, you know, or you're going to hit the bullseye, I should say. Like, you know, you can practice and get the kind of you can get your focus in a place where you know you're going to hit at least hit the target, and then maybe the next step is, well, I'm going to at least hit the middle ring, and then the next step is I'm going to hit the bullseye. You know, so I think step by step is the real big key, especially as we're moving into eclipse season, because like I said, things become unpredictable. So the stuff that's coming up right now is definitely not going to be what's going to what life in reality is going to look like when we're done these eclipses. And also, I mean, Saturn Jupiter conjunction, that's a big one, and I'll probably end up doing a full video on that because I think it's important to just kind of look at that and understand the effects of that, because it's big. And we'll definitely talk more about that too in the Capricorn podcast. But
I like what you're saying there though about it is an archer in Sagittarius, and when you talk about, it's not so much about hitting the bullseye first try. It's about, knowing the kind of general direction, and you get to see how Jupiter kind of moves into that Saturnian energy through Sagittarius going towards Capricorn. It's like that's what Saturn is this like you didn't hit it this time, but you at least know that the target's there. And all of this kind of reminds me of Sagittarius's esoteric mantra, which is I see the goal, I reach the goal, and I see another. And just to loop that back into chasing desires without intention, if you apply that to, when you're at a party and you say, I see the goal, I reach the goal, and I see another, then you can see how that's sort of a loop that can lead into something where it's not really fulfilling. But when you say, I see the goal, and the goal is something that really resonates with you, and then you reach the goal, well, then the next goal is only going to be that much more enticing. And as you continue that cycle, that's really where we find that growth. And I think the key word for Sagittarius is I see. Is that right?
Hmm.
Yeah. So it's like I see, and it's like the bigger picture is much larger than even one individual target, but rather it's just the idea of like, why do we even shoot arrows? It's like we zoom out and we get into the philosophy of who are we? Where are we going? Why are we here? And then we can even zoom out of this kind of human experience and say, what does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to be conscious? What does it mean to be a planet? What does it mean to be a solar system? What does it mean to be a galaxy? What does it mean to be a cluster of galaxies? What does it mean to be all of these different ideas? And when we get into that larger perspective, it's really fascinating. And this is why I hear this, but I'm not sure if this is true. Well, but does Sagittarius rule astrology? Like the subject of astrology?
I mean, there's a lot of debate about what rules that,
Yeah,
but
it's hard to
there's
say, right?
definitely like the ninth house is definitely obviously in modern astrology with the kind of alphabet system. Ninth house and Sagittarius are seen as linked, and ninth house is seen as definitely the house of astrology. So I would say astrology is kind of like in between. I mean, all astrology can be expressed through all the signs, but I would say it's
Yeah.
really linked between Sagittarius, Aquarius, and Pisces, because we have that kind of, you know when you think about the layers of astrology being knowledge, Sagittarius, and then being able to express that knowledge, that's more the Aquarius side of that. But then also being able to be tapped into seeing the patterns and the archetypes and all that, which I see as Pisces. So
Yeah, that's sort of how I see it. It's more of like not a one sign thing, it's more of like a collective thing, cuz it's almost like Sagittarius is just the language, just the logos, just the
mhm.
words, just the relationship in definition, in philosophy.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. So, I mean, yeah, I would say, on a quick kind of like conscious, unconscious uh, framework here for Sagittarius, like on the most conscious level, they're the seekers, they're the adventurers, they're the storytellers, they're the hedonists, in many in a positive way though, of wanting to try everything, wanting to experience everything. And they're also the philosophers, in many regards of wanting to seek and to know and to understand and to expand through that understanding. That's really where we see Sagittarius being ruled by Jupiter. It's the expansion of understanding through following the wisdom, through following the path, through following, the direction that one is going towards, right?
Hmm.
So, uh, so yeah, and then on the more unconscious level, we have the kind of the more negative connotation of hedonism, of kind of just going after the earthly desires, and going after the kind of, like Jupiter is very much known for kind of overindulgence, overdoing it, drinking too much mead, drinking a little too much of the Kool-Aid, and so overdoing it is a big thing, and that's what happens when you get lost on the path. So it's really about staying on the path, as it is for, really all signs. But
Hmm.
when we look at the journey of Sagittarius, it's a very one-pointed journey. It's learning how to be more one-pointed, as opposed to the nature is, well, I got a bag full of arrows. I want to shoot them all. It's like, well, how about we start with a target in mind and then we'll go from there. because you're gonna need your arrows. It's like there's a purpose for them. You're gonna need them to survive. You're gonna need them to go after your goals. You're gonna need them to hit your targets. So it really is learning to kind of step out of the unconscious aspects of Sagittarius and into the conscious aspects of Sagittarius is a journey from not knowing and being okay with having really no direction or little direction to realizing that one pointedness is absolutely a priority, and you need to know where you're going if you want to get there. you know you
I've
don't need to know how you're going to get there, but you need to know where you're going, because then when you get there you can either say I'm here or I'm not here yet. And until you kind of do that, you don't know.
I've heard people with Jupiter on their rising signs often have kind of like they're the types to gain a lot of weight as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, it's such
Usually
a
with usually with transiting Jupiter, that can be like a period of weight gain. But then if you have
mhm.
natal Jupiter in the first, you're usually a bigger person, or sometimes that could mean you got a big doink, a real big
Yeah,
big
that's
big
true. Yeah.
schlong. Or if
But
you're
it
a
also
woman,
represents the idea that you have that ability to make choices. So like every time that you've been at the fridge and you're right about to get another chocolate out the fridge and you decide in that moment and you say, "Not this time. Not today, Satan."
not
That's
today.
actually a that's actually a Jupiterian energy to be able to say, "I have enough. I
Yeah.
am good." It's a king-like energy to be able to say, "I am in control of my body."
Yeah, and to know when enough is enough. I think that's the kind of challenge and the big shift out of unconsciousness to consciousness within Sagittarius, right? It's when the seeker becomes the knower. It's when the seeker becomes the doer, and that's fully honoring the process is getting out of the feeling like you have to always be, what's the new thing that I need to try, or what's the new information that I need to try, to okay, now it's time to apply, and now it's time to share, and now it's time to teach, and knowing the difference between, you know, when which is which, right? I think that's important. So let's take a look at the charts and the astrology for Sagittarius season. Alrighty.
This is day one. So this is the chart just as the sun enters Sagittarius, where you really get a glimpse of the whole season on that first day. So let's see what we have here.
Hmm. So obviously, Sun enters into Sagittarius, 0 degrees. Oh, what else is 0 degrees here?
Hmm.
Dun 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 dun.
Do you have the ability to write on the
I do,
chart?
but my
Oh,
handwriting is gonna be terrible. So,
let's see it. Let's see it.
oh yeah, what should I write?
You should circle Venus and circle the sun.
Well, they're both circled.
Oh, I don't see it.
Oh, hold on one second. It's because I'm sharing the folder, not the aha. Yeah, I've been circling them, and I'm like, haha, you guys are seeing this? No, you aren't seeing this. Okay, let's get this going. Stop
This is
screen.
important because this is a very subtle aesthetic that must be.
Okay.
All right, let's see what
You
we
see
got
that
here.
now?
There we go. I can see it
Okay,
now.
okay, okay.
Awesome. So why don't you introduce this one?
Okay, so I mean, first day, Venus ending Scorpio season with, I mean, just the fact that Venus ended Scorpio season ended with Venus moving into Scorpio after being in Libra, home sign, for the entirety of Scorpio season. Which, I mean, with all those squares, poor Venus, we didn't really get that. We didn't really get any good. We didn't get any really good elections with Venus in Libra because of all those squares, and we didn't really get any. I mean, the transits weren't that great. So,
But what does this say about day one Sagittarius season that we have a 0 degree Venus in its detriment in a place where it doesn't really like to be?
yeah, and I think that right away. I mean, at least I've noticed this too within the last few days. We really have been exploring well, this is what's been coming up. So if it hasn't been coming up for you, it'll probably be coming up for you, of just looking at those patterns associated with Venus. Venus in Scorpio says, Mars and Aries wants the sex. I want the sex. Like there's this desire and this impulse for really wanting to, you know get it on and feel that fiery, passionate sexual energy, sexual creative energy. Well, with Venus in Scorpio, there's a lot more there's a deeper requirement for intimacy. There's a deeper requirement for like the deeper passion. Whereas like Mars and Aries is okay with the quickie, Mars and Aries over here, like the quickie, right? Like I can't even fucking write this, man.
Yeah, don't even try. Don't even try.
No, I'm not even
You're
gonna
right. That's
try.
a good way to put it because it's almost like Sagittarius with that quick, like I
Yep.
see the goal, I reach the goal, I see another, and
Yeah.
it's like it's been a
That's
couple
Mars and
minutes. Yeah.
Aries, right? Mars
Yeah.
has unlimited energy, unlimited creative energy to give to that. Whereas when we see Venus in Scorpio, there's a big shift as Venus enters its detriment, where we're looking at, okay, what are the depths of intimacy? And the sex is still there, and the desire to connect, the desire to like really, expand on the creative energy is still there. But we also want to, be aware that, we need to go deeper if we're wanting to experience you know, the true power of our creative energy, you know.
I really see it too, like Venus and Scorpio, it's like if you're just trying to sleep with people and you're not really trying to connect with people, there's gonna be a lot of that energy exchange that's going on that needs to be not trauma bonding, but it needs to be a vulnerability where you can express those things because Venus and Scorpio just wants to get down to the root of it. And if you don't give yourself that space, if you're being very fiery with Mars or Sagittarius, you really could miss those deeper connections. This is, to me, kind of like a portal to understand ourselves.
Yeah, and then as you can kind of as we'll see here, like
Mhm.
that's going to be happening pretty damn close because Venus is flying through Scorpio. So like within first pretty much first full week of Sagittarius season, that's when we're going to really experience the Venus opposite Uranus, and I mean, I hate to say it like this, but this is like a divorce kind of placement in many ways, and not necessarily in complete relation to relationships, but in all sorts of ways. It's kind of like a really taking a look at what are the hard decisions that need to be kind of made here, because these are both in fixed signs, right? So these are kind of more long term decisions, and those are some hard decisions. Yeah, this is a hard aspect. Venus opposite Uranus.
I
And
kind of made a post about this on my Instagram where I was saying how Uranus being opposite to Venus, it's like, is your relationship based in alignment? Is your relationship based where you guys are actually on the same mission together? Is this a divine union, or is this just some kind of thing that you got together because you had kids, or you got together because you had to, or because people told you to? Then that's where that's going to be challenged. Where you need a foundation with Venus and Scorpio because otherwise it's like the Tower card coming to knock your foundation out because you have to plant those roots of connection deep into the shadow of one another to be able to really
mm,
connect with one another. And I think Uranus is there to say it's time for alignment. And if that alignment doesn't align with you, then Will's right. It's divorce time, and like that's a hard thing to say, but Sagittarius is known for being flighty. Sagittarius is like, well, today I want independence. Today I want to go travel. Today I just want to be me. It's free spirited, it's independent. And a lot of that can be a big influence as well for people to sometimes not even want to try to get closer with one another.
exactly. And I also think like the main kind of foundation of divorce that we're talking about here is not even necessarily like circumstantial. Like it can be obviously manifested depending on if it like, especially if you're, I would say, a Scorpio rising, a Taurus rising. That's
Mm.
big. You have to. That's when it's going to be really related to relationships. But Venus also rules money. It rules, our the core beliefs of worthiness that we have about ourselves. It's like if we can, if those beliefs and if those kind of limitations are not serving us anymore, like if the way that we've been seeing things has not been serving us anymore, then we have to change the way that we see things, no matter how hard that may be or how painful that may be, unfortunately. But also fortunately, because at the end of the day, it'll open us up to new opportunities and new experiences that are ultimately more in alignment with us, right? So
And also with Mars and Aries, it's like it's a battlefield out here. You know, it
yeah,
really is something. It's like we are aggressed, we are enraged to the point where we want to. We in fact, I see a lot of energy that is like pushing all of us to this point of almost break, where things have to change, things need to change, and it almost seems like right now is a great push for this. And so you right there, you're highlighting Mars. What is that? What aspect is that making over there?
these are both quincunxes or
Quincunxes.
inconjuncts. So
Hmm.
look, we got right as Venus is opposing Uranus, it's also making a which is considered a pretty harsh aspect in astrology, quincunx to Chiron too during that whole period, and then at the same like right as we begin the season, we have Mercury, uh, in a quincunx with Mars too. So these are really challenging aspects, and I know for me personally, this is this just like literally, I would say the last 3 days since this pressure has started, there's been a lot more conversations and analysis towards the things that are really important and the things that need to kind of be brought to our attention. The important conversations with Venus opposite Chiron, it's like, what are these kind of foundational beliefs of systems towards our own value? What do we deem ourselves worthy of, and how is this disrupting our our life, in many ways? How is this disrupting our relationships? How is this disrupting our relationship with money? With Chiron in Aries too, it's just really, really digging into that. Even though we don't really like Venus in Scorpio doesn't want to open up, and same with Mercury in Scorpio. It's like I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. And then Mars, in that quincunx with Mercury, it's like, well, it's time to talk about it. It's time to talk about it right now. How about that? And I know, like for me, I've had to have some pretty hard conversations the last little while because of that. And I think, it's a great thing because ultimately it allows us to really, one, get really clear on what we're wanting, get really clear on, if what we're wanting uh, is in complete alignment with, ourselves and the people around us. And also getting clearer on, just what is holding us back, ultimately from seeing our true value. Because that's what these kind of aspects or these harsher aspects are all about. It's like we have to kind of break open. That's what these challenging experiences or these challenging conversations or these kind of even challenging thoughts towards ourselves and towards where we're going and what we're kind of getting ourselves into. They're necessary because they ultimately allow us to, you know, get real clear and real connected with who we are and where we want to be going and what we want to be doing and who we truly are behind all the masks and the garbage and all the fears and the limitations and all that stuff.
And I see as we get closer to the actual lunar nodes where we have the eclipses, a lot of those themes of what you're talking about are going to be really amplified. Those kind of unexpected changes are going to be coming. We're in the season, once again, of I see, and it's time to see what we're worth, time to see where we're going, time to see who we want to be.
Yeah.
So, what do we have here?
And then also Mars is preparing to try and sextile the nodes here too, right? So that's probably like just a few days, maybe like a week or two after that. So we like that's going to be a really Mars trining the south node specifically is like that's going to be bringing us into, again, more change, more abrupt change with Mars and Aries. And then also as Mars gets closer to the 20-degree mark, oh, look what's over here.
Hmm.
It won't hit Jupiter, thank God. But Pluto, definitely. There's still another.
I'm excited to see how that manifests collectively. And I guess I shouldn't say the word excited, but with the astrology, it's very interesting to watch because it has felt like civil war has been breaking out and so many things have been happening with Mars and Aries. It really has felt like the world has turned into a war battlefield where we're choosing sides and we're going against each other when we're being divisive. And it's like when we really see that alignment with the South Node and we see it with, Capricorn systems, governments. I really feel like we're going to see another wave of something coming through this Sagittarius season.
Oh hell yeah. I think it's just again, like the season of true awakening is upon us, and we're really, like, I think with these eclipses specifically, obviously full moon in Gemini, and then also new moon slash solar eclipse, so lunar eclipse, solar eclipse. Gemini and Sagittarius, it's really opening up, you know, what are the kind of collective beliefs that aren't serving us, and what are the collective beliefs that are serving us, and how can we kind of, see them more clearly. I really do think this is going to be a big season of clarity, especially after the Saturn Jupiter conjunction on the solstice, because that's going to be very, very powerful, obviously, uh, not only just for this year and the next year, but for the next 20 years. This is kind of almost like a preamble for that. It's like it's preparing for that. It's preparing for for that to actually take place. So this is a full moon in Gemini, aka the lunar eclipse. So right away we have. Let me just get this going here. Okay, full moon 8 degrees. It's actually 8:38 when we have the eclipse. Okay, boop, 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 boop. Okay, full moon, obviously. Uh, okay, so first, I mean, let's just be real here. Let's look at the rulers. Okay, let's look at the rulers. Okay,
Mhm.
well, Jupiter is getting super damn close to Saturn, right? And Jupiter's just catching up until finally they hit 0 degrees Aquarius on the 21st, and then they've had their beautiful conjunction. So Jupiter ruling the sun, boom, on its way to Saturn, kind of pinned between Saturn and Pluto, as it's been for a little while. And then, oh, the ruler of the moon, 27 degrees Scorpio. Okay, preparing to enter into Sagittarius. Mercury enters into Sagittarius on the 1st of December. So very, I think it's like 2 days, or yeah, 2 days from this. Um, so I mean, this eclipse is really bringing us through the drudges of. I mean, if you look at that, 27 degrees Scorpio, right? That's like you don't go deeper than the depths of Scorpio, and like you do in the last degrees, So like really big, I would say, illuminations towards our mind, towards how we're seeing things, and this eclipse is really bringing us into, okay, how can we take these patterns, these programs of our mind that are no longer serving us, and how can we open up to something better than that? How can we open up to something different? How can we see the truth? That's really this set of eclipses is going to be really showing us, is how can we see the truth? Because for the last little while, the majority of the people have not been seeing the truth of what's going on in the world right now. And I think this is really what's going to kind of ignite that process, between the election, between the state of the world, and the scamdemic and all that shit. So it, there's so much BS out there that we're not able to see things clearly, and you don't get clearer than Sagittarius and Gemini. Like if you want to sift through real information, the raw data, okay, well, we look to Gemini, and then the macro, putting all the pieces together, we look at Sagittarius, and together, the polarity of Gemini and Sagittarius, they work together very nicely, because Gemini represents the duality of the mind and duality of our thoughts, and then Sagittarius represents the one pointed direction when we can kind of align our thoughts with our heart, and align our thoughts with our feelings, and our in a sense our truth, because I don't think feelings even does it justice, because it's not really always feelings, because sometimes our feelings can lie to us. We can lie about we because we have patterns and programs that get triggered upon certain events. So your feelings ultimately need to be in alignment with your heart in order for you to truly know that your feelings are not lying to you, and that you are kind of seeing everything very, very clearly. And then look, oh, what's going on here with Venus again in Scorpio? Nah, they're quincunx right to this. Okay, so there's so much Scorpio influence, but it's all subtle. So this is really where I can kind of see that the secrets and the things that have been trying to, I guess, be suppressed collectively are really going to begin coming to the surface. And I did predict in my prediction video about the election that things will most likely be resolved after the 21st of December into, I think, max by early Jan. So, you know, the, you can only hold on to lies for so long. You can only have so much energy to give to lying. And whether this is personal or we're looking at it on a collective basis, there's not much difference. On a personal level, you can only keep living the same lies and the same non-realities for so long before you kind of have to wake the hell up and realize that you can't keep giving your energy to that. And then collectively, I mean, the quote unquote powers that be, you can only put on these facades for so long before you get exposed, right? I probably use this on every other fucking podcast, but it's my favorite quote from the Buddha. He says, there's three things that cannot remain long hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. And holy shit, is that a perfect summary for this eclipse? Because we got the sun, the moon, and the truth coming out, and the depths of the truth, right?
Literally.
And I mean, another thing, like, let's look at Mercury, the ruler of this eclipse, right, in a sextile with Saturn and Jupiter, right in between. So we have this, like, if I can just get the, let's see, how do I do that? Let's see. Okay, we got the blue now. Okay. So, okay, the sextile here. Okay, specifically these suckers. But we also have that influence of Pluto there, but I would say it's more subtle. So right away we have this. Let me just clear this shit off.
Can I give a brief explanation of why the lunar node and the eclipses are important?
Yeah, please.
So, for those of you who don't know, the North Node, that little symbol up there in Gemini, that symbol really represents that is the direction in which the moon is aligned with. It is the direction in which the moon is slowly kind of pointing at and shifting. So when the moon is on top of the North Node, the lunar node, it's like that is the direction forward. That is the way to the truth. And truly, Gemini to me represents the art of asking a damn good question. And when you ask a question collectively, like, what's going on, this is a good time to actually get the answer, which is hidden in Sagittarius. So right here, when we have this moon aligning perfectly, it creates an eclipse. And in those eclipses, one thing that you should know, because I know a lot of witches and wizards out here are doing magic, it's really not the best time to be doing magic. It's a good time to be It's a good time to be doing magic in the form of asking a question and being like, who am I? And then as we discover that, we get the answer, but it's not really a good time to be setting like new moon spells, new moon rituals. This is really a time to allow truth to just kind of flow into your stream of consciousness. So I'll let you go ahead and continue.
Totally. And I think, with eclipses, this is a good thing to know, period, is they're gateways of uncertainty. That's the whole point, and to the point where ancient cultures literally would not go outside for that day. They would, especially a solar eclipse, they would not go outside for that day because the sun was seen as their power symbol, and the sun was being eclipsed was seen as a moment of deep weakness for that power symbol. So when we look at it from like an archetypal perspective, eclipses, and also from an occult perspective, eclipses really are gateway periods. They're in a sense like little portals, and the eclipses are either in sets of 2 or sets of 3. So when we have, and this eclipse is in a set of 2, so we have the lunar eclipse and then the solar eclipse. These are kind of like these shifting points. So everything in between these eclipses, and honestly, like about a month before and a month after, it's all up in the air, right? It's all up in the air. There's so much, especially, and the reason that I'm saying especially is because eclipses period represent that. But when we have eclipses in mutable signs, that's like complete rearrangement, So we've had eclipses for the last 2 and a bit years in cardinal signs, right? And that's been great. It's created a lot of changes because, like I said, eclipses period create changes. Eclipses in mutable signs, it's that rearranging, it's that in between, it's those in between stages. So it's about learning how to ultimately let go. Jesus, take the wheel. That's what eclipses are all about. Just learning how to let go and flow with it, and not be so rigid on where we're going to be going, setting intentions. Even like you can set intentions for your state of being,
Mm,
but
that's a good
definitely
way to say that.
not the destination, because the destination, especially with Eclipse Central, you know, is you have to, you just have to learn how to kind of let go, relax, and learn to just flow with the energy. And that's really, especially during this mutable season with these mutable eclipses, there's not a whole lot of control. So even if you try, and the best part about eclipses is if you try and have some control, watch what happens.
I'm
Really,
excited to see the way that the news comes out on this day, because you were talking about the fake news coming out, but Gemini rules news cycles because Gemini rules that stream of information. And when you control the stream of information, you got to get kind of checked from time to time. And I feel like this might be a time where they're going to get checked. And especially, yeah, Mercury's at 27 degrees, which I'm
27
not sure.
degrees,
That's the,
sextiling
go ahead.
sextiling Jupiter and Saturn. And Mercury represents news. Mercury represents messaging. Mercury represents communications, right? News, communications, mail, day-to-day transactions, short-term travel. Mercury in Scorpio is all of that being hidden, all of that
Hmm.
kind of, you know, below the surface level. So what we're going to see with this is during this period, I would say between these eclipses and between the Saturn Jupiter, between here, the 30th to the 21st, we're going to see a lot of that start to uncover itself, and not just collectively. Collectively, we will see that for sure. We'll see the news kind of, because like I said, you can only be projecting lies for so long, and maybe people will look at the news and say, well, they've always been lying, so I don't know about that. And I would agree with you, by the way, but I would
Yeah.
also say that the extent of lying and bullshit we've never seen in our entire lives, nonetheless our entire history, really, because you haven't been able to, there hasn't been this control on the news for a long time. But now we
Especially
hit.
this year, though. I mean, like, when we
Oh
were
my
talking about the
god.
elections and we were talking about these people, like, bringing in ballots, these people, like, cardboarding the place up, these people, this was all done during Mercury and Scorpio retrograde, like, that's what makes it really kind of sketchy to me, is that these secrets are that these things that are being hidden, that was all during a Mercury retrograde, like, maybe not the best time to be doing that, honestly. Because now that it's moving forward, it's like, what are we going to really see?
Yep, exactly. And man, I just think we're going to see a lot of things eventually be uncovered, but we also have to realize that that's not going to happen until, you know, I would say not during this eclipse will that happen. I would say
Mhm.
it'll
Yeah.
happen, that it's going to begin to happen,
It's like a
but
snowball effect, I
yeah,
would say.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's a building up of that type of energy, and that's really that Sagittarius energy playing off of that the Gemini kind of combined with the Scorpio, right? So we have this kind of, things are under the surface, things are not fully clear yet, but then we also have this momentum, right, where there's so much mental activity with Gemini, so much kind of mental, right, that's getting ready to just kind of implode. Mercury and Scorpio, like there's still that Mars rulership, right? So we still have that kind of Martian influence where, I mean, as what we've kind of even seen since Mercury's been in Scorpio, like just so much, one, hidden agendas, obviously, but also so much kind of like blunt kind of bomb drops, of just like how emotionally manipulative
Hmm.
the kind of, and psychologically manipulative the information has been, or as of recent. So remember though, this is really what we have to look at when we're looking at these eclipses, right? We really have to look at this. But then also, like I was saying before, if I can just clear this off for a
Let's
second.
also make sure that we pull this information back down to the individual level, because it happens on all levels. What's happening collectively is happening between relationships, which is happening on the individual level, which is happening on the subconscious level. And so, even in relationships, if you're in a relationship with a narcissist and you're an empath, that traditional archetypal relationship, those kind of manipulations are going to come out. Gaslighting is going to come out. But even the lies that we tell to ourselves, the stories that we tell to ourselves, those kind of things can be what is unexpectedly delivered in eclipse season. When we
Totally.
get a reflection, almost like a mirror image of, maybe we see a person who is doing the exact same things that we do and it triggers us, for example.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think too, just kind of going it back, and then we'll look through some more charts.
Okay.
Uh, Venus again in that inconjunct, like the inconjuncts this season are pretty intense, and these are subtle aspects, but they have real big impact on ourselves, our character, our evolution, and also like when we look at them collectively, these are really
Mhm.
like they're really strenuous kind of aspects. They're seen as very stressful aspects. So having Venus in detriment, in that in conjunct with the eclipse, right? Like that's we really have to understand the balance between the mind and our values, because with Venus in Scorpio, there's that, we're really looking at the depths of how do we value ourselves. And with Venus in Scorpio, it can be kind of challenging to see ourselves in a more objective light and be able to see the true value of ourselves. Or we have the kind of opposite of that, where you got that inflated kind of, persona, that Mars ego. But then with in that aspect with the moon, we see this kind of real big stress on the mind. So you have to be aware of how the effects of Venus in Scorpio are going to be kind of strenuous on the mind and the mental processes that we're going to see with this eclipse. So we do have to be aware of, for example, with Venus and Scorpio, things to be aware of on what kind of stressors. Well, I mean, a big thing is obviously like attraction, and what you are attracting into your life, not just sexually and not just like, romantically, but like, you attract ultimately what you believe you're worth. You are ultimately bringing into your experience what you believe that you're worth. And if you believe that you ain't worth shit, then you ain't going to get shit, fam. But if you believe that you are worth something, you are worth, a lot, and you're deeply worthy of that, then you're going to start to see the kind of, I would say, the you're gonna be more aware of the kind of mental patterns and programs that are, kind of hindering that. And that's really what I can see this kind of stressful aspect as being,
Y
as exposing, on top of the fact that this whole eclipse is ruled by Mercury and Scorpio. So like I said, we have these two kind of, placements of Scorpio, and both of them are not really happy. Venus isn't
I
happy in
see that being
Scorpio.
like a, is he cheating on me? Is she cheating on me?
Yeah,
I
paranoia.
need to
That's
I need to
definitely a
read
big
his
side of that.
messages. I need to read her messages. I need to follow them. I need to stalk them. I need to make sure that the questions that I'm getting overwhelmed with mercurially are not true realities. And it seems like that's what that aspect says a lot to me, which is like that paranoia of relationships. And that paranoia, by the way, stems from a lack of trust.
Totally. Totally. And when we can kind of, I guess, synchronize, right,
Mm.
Venus and Mercury, of being able to not be so paranoid, right? But then again, like I said, we still have this kind of stress. Like, sure, normally sextiles are really nice and fun and all that stuff, but I mean, Big Daddy Saturn down here, and like poor little Mercury. Mercury's not very strong in Scorpio, so there's a lot of kind of there's a lot of things to consider right now. And all I'm saying is, in general, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure for us to really face, a lot of the not so pretty feelings, as well as kind of come to terms with what we're actually truly feeling, and the raw, deep down truth of that. Because it's like, if you're not fully in, and that's really what Mercury and Venus and Scorpio say. It's like you're either all in or you're not at all. And there's no point in kind of, you know, shit in the bed with thinking, something differently, right? You could just like be straightforward about it. And I think
Right.
that's the challenge, though, because like I said, this kind of mutable connection here. Let's clear stuff. It's looking messy here. But this opposition, right? Solar eclipse. That's like that mutability makes it difficult to kind of come to those conclusions, and that's where we can kind of see that stress as kind of manifesting itself. So things to be aware of, things to be aware of. And really, you gotta be very, very mindful of your mind during this season.
And this is a wait, this is a full moon coming from that new moon in Scorpio, right?
Yep.
That new moon was a very potent new moon in Scorpio,
Oh yeah.
and coming to now the full moon in Gemini, it's this whole cycle of getting to this point seems like it's just trudging and drudging through those uncomfortable feelings, those feelings that are dark that make us feel sort of weak. But in reality, this is what I've learned in 2020. When I'm challenged by the darkness of life, that's when I need to be most grateful, because when else do we get a chance to really learn about ourselves like this? Like, we can't really just always tap in and get to know the shadow in the same ways that like a Scorpio sun can be able to do that work. This, to me, it's like the way through this kind of moon energy is by seriously asking ourselves those questions of Gemini, which say, what needs to change? Who am I? What the hell do I keep doing wrong with my life? And you can kind of just pull at yourself, and instead of getting overwhelmed by anger, sadness, trauma, grief, annoyance, frustration, irritability, instead of getting annoyed by those things, be grateful the fact that you have them, because when you are, then you can say like, why am I annoyed? Why am I irritated? Why am I enraged? And then you can begin to figure out those puzzle pieces, and it seems like this full moon is like the ultimate key for the lock to be able
Totally.
to actually unlock that Pandora's box and say, this is my authentic self.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's like you have to face those parts of yourself if you want to actually come to the truth. If you want to come to the truth, if you want to keep living in those non-realities, you want to keep living those lies, and that's a different story. You can be happy in your little bubble. It's actually misery, but you can convince yourself that it's happiness. But the truth is, if you want to come to the truth can be challenging to fully swallow. It's can be challenging to fully process. And the only way to do it though is to fucking do it. It's not to kind of beat around the bushes. It's to actually just dive on in and not be afraid of that. And that's really what this kind of Mercury in Scorpio final degrees really kind of putting that pressure on this eclipse. That's the gateway. Because like I said, eclipses are the gateway, and the flavor of that gateway is the ruler of that eclipse. And then the direction of that gateway is where the nodes are, right? So then when we see, okay, nodes are in Gemini, Sagittarius, okay? Gemini, North Node in Gemini. Well, we have to be really mindful, really aware of uh, our mind, and really aware of the truth, and really aware of the duality, and that is present. And obviously, with the South Node in Sagittarius, we have to be mindful of, when we're overindulging, when we're kind of overdoing it, and when it's time to seek and when it's time to integrate. But then having this flavor of Mercury in Scorpio, right? That
Do you think
really
do you think we're
dims the light
overdoing it?
down a little bit.
Do you think we're overdoing it right now by giving this full moon chart as much love as we have?
I mean, hey, eclipses are important, and I have to say, this is when shit gets really exciting in Sagittarius season.
It's very exciting. And it's also interesting because we get a sort of glimpse into that as well with that new moon that's also coming in Sagittarius, right? That's an eclipse as well. It's a new moon eclipse?
So this is a full moon eclipse.
Okay. But what about the new moon
Oh
that
yeah,
comes
the
up?
the the new moon is go to Brent put all these charts in poor Peru. I'm gonna ignore that though.
It's okay, yeah.
So yeah, now we have, what the hell?
That would be yeah, what is that? Oh, that's November 14th. We'll have to get that one up. Let me send
Yeah, I
that to
can
you real
pull
quick.
that now.
Well, we're not even on that yet, are we? We're still on the other ones. I'll pull that up and send that to you.
All right. Well, we have Mercury. Yeah, Mercury in Sagittarius. Okay, Mercury enters Sagittarius on the 1st. Uh, okay. So I mean, look, this is a. I would say this is a bigger kind of. Uh, 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 Mercury and Sagittarius. They're loud as fook. Okay, my brother has Mercury and Sagittarius. My mom has Mercury and Sagittarius. They're all very loud. I grew up in a very loud house, which is probably why I'm pretty loud myself. Despite having a Mercury and Taurus. Although we can be loud when we need to be, and quiet when it's important to be quiet. So, but Mercury and Sagittarius, I mean, just in general, this is really putting more or less the focus on that more boldness, I would say, like a more kind of bold look at the truth, and I would say compared to the kind of investigative Mercury in Scorpio, where it's also like really looking at the hidden truths. Mercury now in Sagittarius as of the first, we're going to really see just a kind of collective shift towards, I would say, I would like to think at least we'll be embracing more truth, and we'll be embracing more of the truth that has kind of been unveiled with Mercury leaving Scorpio. So I'm hoping that's what happens, and I can see that happening. But again, how the astrology plays out is not up to the astrologer.
Yeah.
So, but I just want to talk about this aspect too, if I can get this.
Okay, I sent you that other picture, by the way.
All right, I'll pull that up in a sec. Uh,
Yeah,
so
Mercury in Sagittarius, you're right, because there is that part of Sagittarius which is blunt, direct, honest, straight like an arrow, and they don't almost have time, because Sagittarius says, I see the goal, I reach the goal, I see another. Like sometimes Sagittarius says, I see your bullshit, here it is, and now I'm ready for something different, and it's like it can be loud and so jovial and so expansive, even expansive to our own minds, maybe when we're not sometimes ready for it. But Sagittarius is still going to give it to us.
I agree, and yeah, I mean, just that aspect to Chiron too. I mean, that's gonna be pretty, I would say, expansive. Let me just close this down and we'll look at that in a sec. But yeah, I mean, let's just take a look at the kind of combo here. So Mercury and Sag, okay, seeking the truth, expressing the truth, teaching, storytelling, the whole shebang. Be really good storytellers, really good speakers, really good conversationists, but also very hot. Hot-headed, can tend to be pretty flamed up. And we have it trying to Chiron in Aries. We're just we're putting more fire on the flames already. We're increasing the heat of that, and specifically, this is a very healing aspect when it comes to the mind, because we're really able to just, I would say this is a very kind of transmutative aspect, because we're able to look at things pretty damn clearly, and just say what's really working here and what's really not working here. And where do we perhaps need more passion too? Where do we need more passion and empathy towards ourselves and each other? Where we're like, have you been telling the truth? Have you been honest with yourself, and have you been honest with others about how you're feeling and about what you're going through and about where you're at? And I think like, you don't have to share all your bullshit on social media, but you need to have some sort of support system too, with people that understand your passion and understand your truth. And I think when you have that, then this aspect can be really healing. I can see this aspect as being also very kind of impulsive. A lot of kind of impulsive elements here with a fire trine. Obviously, we kind of see that overindulgence energy. Both Aries and Sag like to all fire signs like to indulge. Who am I kidding? Especially Leos too. But this trine can really lock in a lot of growth, right? Or it can hold us back. So again, ultimately, how that manifests is up to you and your life and also your chart. But really look at the kind of key elements here of Mercury and Sagittarius being learning how to express the truth, express your honesty, express your wisdom, with Chiron and Aries being like, okay, let's put a little more pressure on understanding, what elements are preventing you from speaking the truth, what elements are preventing you from seeing, the truth of yourself, of your life, of what's going on in your own world and in your own element. And I think the more that you can kind of be truthful with yourself, be honest with yourself and the people that you love, the better your life will be, the better quality of a life you'll have, guaranteed.
I love that with both Aries and Sagittarius. When you think about the parts of the body that those two signs rule, like Sagittarius is the hips, the thighs, and then Aries is the head. And like you said, it gives you that ability to express what's on your mind in a way that maybe before we didn't know how to properly lay that out. But with all that fire, it's sort of like, well, here's how I feel. and then we get kind of more directly to the point rather than maybe trying to eloquently try to describe it in a way that is not so suitable. But with that fire energy, I feel like that comes through and it's like, I'm tired of feeling this way. This is how it is from now on. It's like an empowerment from that kind of energy versus something where you're only in your head or only in your hips.
Totally. Totally. And as you can see too, when this has happened, Venus has already experienced her lovely opposition with Uranus, right? Gone through that whole event. So, there's a lot of kind of, I would say, weighing out the options here, of what do we need to kind of experience, what do we need to recognize or see or perceive in order to really get it, in order to really get to the truth, in order to really get to the the peak of our in a sense our awareness, of like what's going on. Because we just look at collectively, like, shit's been so confusing, things have been all over the place, there's been so much kind of back and forth, left and right, it's kind of everywhere, right? And we want to be able to see things more clearly, and like I said, this aspect can really help us in doing that. Let's just
And
look at
this is only like one day after that last new moon chart, right? Because the moon is still in Gemini in that other chart. Like this is one day after.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no, exactly. It's right after, right after. All right. So so this is the solar eclipse. Solar eclipse. So this is where we're looking, friends. This is where we're looking.
Oh,
Okay.
that's like right next to the galactic center, isn't it?
26 degrees.
26 degrees. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. So solar eclipse, lunar eclipse, like I said, gateway periods, portal periods, periods where we're really looking at the changes that are kind of being made. It's more, you're not in the driver's seat in eclipse season. You are in the passenger seat, and you're hoping to God that you get to your destination. That's really what eclipse season is all about. It's like, I hope this Uber driver knows where he's going, and I hope he doesn't take any paid tolls, and I hope that we don't get into a car accident, and I hope that all this crazy shit doesn't happen, which you probably will, but just is what it is. You just ride it out. You'll make it. You'll be okay. Even if the car crashes, you'll get out. You can walk. It's all good, right? So we have to be prepared. Is all I'm saying. We have to be prepared for the vast changes that are happening. So let's take a little look at some of these aspects here. Okay. So first and foremost, oh ho ho, oh ho ho. Oh, let me just oh ho ho, Mars trining all this stuff. I mean, in an exact trine with Mercury conjunct the South Node, right? Mercury conjunct the South Node. So Mars is in a perfect trine with that, right? There we go. All right. We get the blue for the trines, and then the squares too. We got some nice squares to Neptune,
Yep.
right on the nodes. Neptune's squaring the nodes. So, okay. First and foremost, having Mars in such a potent aspect with this solar eclipse. Is it a total solar eclipse?
It might be. Can we also give a little bit of insight as well about what the South Node really means here when it comes down to all of these placements being right on top of it? I guess I'll go ahead and give kind of an insight to that. When the South Node is typically described, this is an aspect of usually dealing with karma, usually dealing with what we would call fate, destiny. It often has to do with past lives. So think about how karma, if you were to tell a lie, then that kind of karma would come back as truth. And that truth would manifest in a way that rewards you if you put in good karma, you're going to get good karma in return. But if you put in lies, deceit, a bunch of confusion, that's kind of what you get in return. And since the South Node is right here, and Sagittarius represents what I would consider to be answers or truth, then it seems like this kind of placement is really when the answers come to surface. When I said earlier, I said I wanted to see the news on that day. I take that back. I want to see the news on this day. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like, this is
yeah,
the
me
day
too.
where things get released. This is the day where new evidence surfaces. This is the day where old confusions collectively in our own lives and our relationships actually like blast us wide open.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. So we have Neptune and Mars aspecting the nodes, which is very, very big. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, Neptune, it's a long time. These are long places. Neptune doesn't move much. But I mean, nonetheless, we have this kind of pretty tight square. With the nodes. So we have this influence of Neptune. Let me just make these. Okay, there we go. Ba, 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 ba. Ba, ba, ba,
Nice.
ba. So nice T square, right, with Neptune during this whole process. But then we also have that trine to Mars, right, and aka a little sextile to the North Node. But okay, so first and foremost, the T square with Neptune. This is really bringing in that kind of again illusory type of emphasis towards all of this stuff. This is going to be able to tap us into really getting clear on, in a sense, our destiny, both as a collective society. The fact that this is happening so close to the Saturn Jupiter conjunction is just stupid, so we
Yeah,
have to be
seriously.
aware of this happening like the week before, like literally 1 week before uh this conjunction. So this is the foreshadowing of all that this stuff is going to, really bring us. So I mean, these are what we got to be looking at. This stuff is we'll look at in about a week again. We'll come back to, but I mean, if you look here, uh, that's a pretty tight little sextile there with Jupiter and Saturn too. Venus is also in a little pin there, right, with these guys. But
Goodness
again,
gracious.
we're not just too much to go on here.
This
Uh,
is right after the eclipse, by the way, right? Like, this
right
is like
after the
it's
eclipse.
right after the eclipse. So it's like maybe this is that unexpected step-by-step things that start to unravel and start to actually give us new data to work with.
Yeah, well, and this is the thing too. Like when we're looking at and it is a total solar eclipse, by the way. I just looked at my ephemeris. It's a total solar eclipse. Again, right, 26 degrees is the galactic center.
What does the galactic sensor mean to you, Will?
Well, the galactic center is in a sense, the kind of core middle point or the 0 point of our galaxy, our solar system. So we have to look at that as kind of in a sense being the point through which, you know source in a sense permeates through within our galaxy. And I mean, having this eclipse, like, to me, there is no coincidences, right, when it comes to, especially when it comes to astrology. Like, it's very, very, very few times where I would have literally argued that, oh, it's just a coincidence. Very, very few times. The majority of stuff, there's no coincidences, because these are patterns that we're recognizing, right? That's the whole point of astrology and, any sort of thing like that, right? It's just patterns that we're recognizing. um so having this all kind of unwind right before, right? Like I said, right before this stuff going on here, right? Right before that stuff, the Saturn Jupiter conjunction, which happens in 1 week, right? 14th, 21st. 21st is the day that this stuff happens. Okay. So, first and foremost, I mean, Neptune squaring the nodes really brings in that kind of deep. It can bring in a deep empathy, but it can also bring in a deep disillusionment. It depends on how we are approaching it and what level of consciousness we're approaching it from. If we're approaching it from a conscious place, then we have a deeper level of empathy towards, the direction in which we're headed. Neptune squaring the North Node in Gemini,
Yeah.
really, like, I mean, that to me can be so much confusion. So much
Neptune's been squaring it
confusion.
though, hasn't it? Because the nodes are moving kind of relatively slowly, and so does Neptune, right? So it's like they've been here, and there has been
Yeah,
that
for a long time, but I'm
disillusionment.
saying during this eclipse, yeah, we're not looking
Yo.
necessarily at totally, totally, totally. And we're seeing that, like, very, very potently and prominently,
Mhm.
with everything
Seriously.
that's going on. So, and the square, it's really, really adding that pressure. where we're going to get to the truth, but in a sense, what are you willing to? That's really what the square is kind of asking. It's like, what are you willing to let go of, and also what are you willing to put your faith in, you know, as we move forward. And I think the more that we can kind of discover that, or be more conscious of that, be more aware of that, that the better it'll all be. Better it'll all be. So,
You there? You're kind of cutting in and out.
um, just get frozen over here.
Oh, okay. I see you're going through some technical difficulties. Um, I can certainly see this being a very massive time for just allowing ourselves to receive information, for just allowing ourselves to not make discernment based off of black or white, but rather being able to make discernment off of new information coming in.
Yeah, totally. It's more or less being that we need to go through in order to get through to the truth, in order to get through to the other side of things. It's like we can't see things clearly until all that happens. you know so I think the more clearer we get on all this, the more we can really, in a sense, see the truth about it all. And that really requires us to dive deeper, though. That requires us to dive deeper into who we are. That requires us to dive deeper into our past. That requires us to seek out the truth. And in a day and age of so much misinformation, that can be challenging. It can be really challenging. So, and
Are we
again,
ready to look at the Jupiter Saturn chart?
I mean, one thing I just wanted to look at quickly is the Mars and um, Mars and Aries aspecting this too, because
Okay.
the eclipse is really, we have to see all the angles of this, because like I said, this is a big foreshadowing of what this Saturn Jupiter conjunction is going to do for us, right? And in a sense, when you look at the energy leading up to a big aspect like the Jupiter Saturn conjunction, and the fact that not only is this a big aspect itself, but there's a big transit that's happening 1 week before, which is the solar eclipse, total solar eclipse in Sagittarius, right? This is a big deal. This is a big deal. So, I mean, Mars trine Mercury and Sag, that's where we're really going to see that push towards, asserting ourselves towards the truth, seeking out the truth, finding the truth, no matter what, no matter what it takes to get to the truth. And I mean, so I like this placement for this, because I really think that this is going to help unravel some of those scorpionic type of mysteries that may have been shrouding our minds in many ways. But this whole, eclipse in Sagittarius, on the macro sense, because I want to give you guys some, real practical nuggets here. And on the macro sense, we have to look at the one pointed direction of where we're going collectively as a society. Are we going further into duality and disillusionment, like we have with this square, right? The Neptune squaring the north node and the south node in that T square? Or are we going, towards truth and freedom? Are we going towards truth and freedom? And are we going to allow the kind of dedication and persistence of Mars and Aries specifically to really push us through that period? Mars trining this eclipse should not be taken lightly. It should not be taken lightly at all. Mars in domicile trining this eclipse should not be taken lightly. And the fact that Mars in domicile is like pretty much in an exact trine with the South Node too, we're really given an opportunity to, some get rid of some old shit, get rid of some old. And to me, this is just a big rebirthing on ourselves collectively, on the kind of whole way in which we process information and perceive information, but most importantly, how we can just really, step into our power, step into that illumined state of being, and recognize and honor our power. Because until we recognize and honor our power, we're we believe in our limitations, and truthfully, nothing can limit you except yourself. So when we can hone in on the passion of Mars, when we can hone in on the passion of Mars again in that aspect with Mercury, the South Node, and even the eclipse to some extent, we're really being able to look at the macro here. And it's time we looked at the macro as opposed to just the micro fucking emotional politics and events that have been going on that are bringing us further away from the truth. We need to get closer to the truth. And I really think this is going to be the push that we need to get there. And then, like I said, 1 week later, look, 21st, right? Actually looks like the
This
Jupiter.
is a great awakening that we're looking at. This December 24th
Straight
chart is
up.
it's a great awakening. Like, it's either you're going to choose to start doing the work or you're going to continue to be disillusioned. But there's been never this much pressure, resistance, restrictions, boundaries, limitations. All of those things are what
Being
push us
challenged
to
too right now. Being so
being
challenged right now.
challenged. Yeah.
Holy
They
shit.
force us to wake up, though. It's because they force us to
Absolutely.
become something stronger, because there's such a battle, there's such a need for all of us to get rid of little petty insecurities, like really
Yeah.
little things.
But with Mercury in Sag too, so close to this. Like these are deeper, and especially between the South Node here with the Mars aspect. It's like these are deep insecurities, and these are deep kind of programmings and deep kind of rooted beliefs that are being challenged right now. Right? That's really what Mars trine Mercury is. It's like a friendly challenge. And I mean, in fire sign though, friendly challenge can still be aggressive. It's kind of like wrestling. Like you should see I mean, growing up, me and my brother, and now I have younger brothers, and they go at it just like I did with my brother. And it's like it's aggressive, but it's still fun. So I think that's a real big thing that we need to kind of keep in mind with this eclipse is there's going to be changes. That's a given. There's going to be challenges. That's a given. But can we kind of see the lighter side to it all? Can we see the light kind of permeating through it all? And I truly believe that we can. But it's going to take, like I said, some rearrangement in order for all of us to get there. But that's okay. Sometimes we need some rearrangement to figure shit out.
Certainly, I'm excited to see what does come from this period of time, and I'm sure a lot of this is going to be a very individually felt thing. And even for those of us that have been on the path for whatever amount of time, it's going to be an amazing time to really dive deeper into our practices, dive deeper into our commitment to seeing that light, to discovering that light, and also it's going to be a great December 14th. I'm going to be on my yoga mat. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to be figuring some things out on that day
Totally.
and preparing for this incredible Saturn and Aquarius, Jupiter and Aquarius combo that we get to experience this year. Not even before 2020 ends, we get the great conjunction of Jupiter and Sagittarius. What am I
This
saying?
year's
Saturn.
nuts.
This year has been
Nuts.
it's a
Saturn
good
Pluto
year to be an
conjunction,
astrologer.
Saturn Jupiter conjunction to end the year, Saturn Pluto conjunction to start the chaos.
What is this chart?
This is Venus entering into Sagittarius. I'm
Oh,
not
I
going to
see.
talk too much about this, but to just be really frank, Venus leaving Scorpio and moving into Sagittarius, there's going to be more of that kind of light energy, I will say, because it's really Scorpio to Sagittarius is dark to light. At the
Mhm.
very kind of peak, it's cold to warm, dark to light. And it's really being able to both are so necessary. All the with Venus, with Mercury, obviously leaving Scorpio season, all of that in Scorpio. Whew, we had to learn some deep lessons, and even throughout Sagittarius season, pretty much until the 15th, uh, we have that kind of heaviness still of Scorpio, but now everything's moving out of the kind of denseness of that those deep, kind of dark Scorpio lessons, and now into the more lighthearted lessons. Doesn't mean that there still won't be challenges, but the challenges are going to be more intellectual as opposed to kind of really emotional or feeling oriented. Okay, so let's just okay. So this is the next chart. This is when
Man, and the moon's
Saturn
right there too,
really.
welcoming it in. It's
Oh
incredible.
yeah. Oh yeah. Right. So
Can't
Saturn
believe
enters
that.
Aquarius.
I can't believe that. That's ridiculous.
Yep. And this is the exact degrees, by the way, that Jupiter is going to meet in, what is that, 3-4 days after this, right? So all I'm saying is Saturn in Aquarius, like Saturn in Capricorn for the last few years has really been about especially with the nodes there, right? It's been really about the rearrangement and in a sense, the destruction of the systems and that have no longer, worked. Systems that have no longer worked, the systems that just no longer make sense, and at the same time, a kind of quick rebuilding of that. But that's not long term, right? Getting more into the long term vision, that's that Aquarius. That's where we're really going to see this shift. And when this kind of when this
Ooh.
conjunction happens and 0 degrees Aquarius, so the moon meets Saturn there, right? It's kind of like it's like the warm up round, it's like Saturn meets the moon. Okay, a little challenging in Aquarius. This is all happening in my lovely 12th house.
Uh,
But so the big, I would say the big difference between Saturn and Capricorn versus Saturn and Aquarius is, like I said, Saturn in Capricorn is more focused on the task at hand, whereas Saturn in Aquarius is more focused on the more long-term vision. Doesn't mean that Capricorn isn't still building for the long term, because what Capricorn builds, it tends to last a long time. But with Aquarius, it's more or less focused on a more outward intention, whereas with Capricorn, it's more focused on the inward intention. So it's like impulses versus explosive. So we're going to see a lot, like with Saturn and Aquarius. I'm going to say this now. We're going to definitely see a lot more censorship before we see more freedom. But I really think after the Saturn Jupiter conjunction, it won't be that much long for the period before we experience total decentralization, and then there's like, I'm like, what I'm predicting is that we're literally going to see these big platforms start to die off and drop off, and we're going to see these decentralized platforms really start to take a boost. We're going to start to see cryptocurrency as being used on a day-to-day for purchases, transactions. Fiat will still be there. Like, we're still going to have US dollars. We're still going to have euros and shit. But we're going to, like, now there's crypto debit cards that are coming out, where you can literally buy purchases like in store with cryptocurrency. So the more we have stuff like that, and the innovation of technology over the next 20 years is going to be the most rapid technological advancement we'll have seen thus far. And to be honest, from 2000 to 2020, that was a big shift. That was a big technological advancement. Absolutely. But now with the Saturn Jupiter conjunction, we're going to see that kind of really grounded into society. Because what we've seen is, yes, the way in which we've communicated and approached technology has shifted in various ways, right? We all have phones now. We all have, like, our computers have gone from these giant hunky dory things to these tiny little, things that, as Nikola Tesla said, we could fit right in our pockets, and that's definitely impacted us. That's definitely shifted the way in which we communicate. However, there is still many, many people disconnected, many people that are disconnected from the internet. There's only, like, I think it's like 2 or 3 billion, if that, people connected on the internet.
yeah, it's about
So it's,
two, 3.
yeah. So, and that will grow for sure as we see more
Mhm.
decentralized technology kind of coming through. Uh, but
Do you watch the price of cryptocurrency?
oh yeah, yeah.
Have you seen
I've
it in the
been
past
investing
week?
in. Oh yeah, no, it's stupid. It's stupid.
It's so stupid. Yeah, Bitcoin went from like probably somewhere in the 13, 14 realm to back up to 18, almost peaking $19,000 a share.
Yep.
And that's because I feel like everybody knows that this next wave is coming in. Honestly, I'm going to be excited to see how crypto changes in December versus how it's been kind of going.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, exactly. And I think too, like, I mean, we, like, for those who follow crypto, like Bitcoin's I mean Bitcoin's down a little bit today, but Bitcoin
Mhm.
blasted up. Ethereum's up. Uh, XRP's up. Like there's a lot of things that are up. Another company that I'm invested in is called CyberFi, which is really cool project. Definitely check them out. Um, and you know they're up. Like I just making stupid amounts of money off this right now, which is great. But we're going to see more of that, and that's the cool part about what I see with Jupiter and Saturn conjunct in Aquarius. Like I said, I'm going to do a whole video on that too to just like talk about the specifics, and we'll touch on it a bit today. But we're really we'll go more into that on for Capricorn season because that's really what kicks off Capricorn season. But I will say that we're going to just see technology be more accessible because it's there's still gateways and stuff like you know that we're seeing less and less of that. Like now, all these 5G phones, surprise, surprise, are way cheaper than any other device ever, you know. Again, surprise, surprise. But we're going to see more of that. We're going to see more I would say free energy projects kind of coming out, being more decentralized.
Aliens.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I would say within the next 20 years, we'll definitely have some contact, you know, for sure. I would say, or at least the start of that. Like whether that's just, you know, we're getting more weird transmissions and stuff already. You know, even NASA's saying shit about that. So yeah, I mean, we're just gonna see this real big the like we haven't even touched the surface of the wave of decentralization yet. It's just scratching. It's just starting. It's just started within the last 10 years. So what we're going to see over the next 20 years is complete decentralization. Or at least dominantly decentralization. And that's exactly what the quote unquote powers that be do not want. So that's why we're also going to see some crazy kind of rebellion as well, especially going into 2021. Chinese ox year, I would say a lot of resistance towards the kind of structures and authorities that are being put in play.
Yeah, especially in Aquarius, because Aquarius you get into Uranus territories with Aquarius, which is it's not let's bow down to the king. It's actually the complete opposite, which is fuck your kingdom. You know, it's kind of like fuck your authority. I don't need you to tell me how to live my life. There's a lot of that with Saturn and Aquarius, and I'm thankful that Capricorn's finally kind of getting done with the beating that it's been getting with
Yeah,
all of these planets there. Even though Pluto is going to be there till 2024. I'm just thankful for Jupiter and Saturn to now be kind of freeing itself up. It almost feels like moving out of this Scorpio season and getting into Sag season. To me, it's like I'm excited for this my own Saturn return.
totally. And then we finally have towards I think it's on the 30th of December. We have yeah, it's like a full moon in Cancer. It's the
Mm.
first full moon in Cancer that doesn't have stupid harsh aspects to all that Capricorn
Thankfully.
stuff. Oh my goodness. It's about time we got some, you know, real loving from that Cancer
Mhm.
moon. So I mean, yeah, like I said, we'll touch more on that in the next podcast, and I'll do a whole video on it before then. But all I will say is that this is something that will change the world. This transit is something that will really rock and shift the world, specifically when it comes to technology, when it comes to interconnectivity, as well as when it comes to decentralization. And the process and the journey of that may look like more censorship in the short term, but in the long term, that opens up the gateway to complete decentralization because the people right now do not understand the importance of decentralization, and that's the problem. And what this is going to bring is an awareness to that. Like Jupiter expanding the awareness of Saturn, the boundaries and the restrictions that are in play currently, that's going to be a real big holy shit, you know, because right now, like our grandparents that are on the internet or our parents that are on the internet, they don't even get it. They don't understand the importance of decentralization. They're just like, I can
Mhm.
browse the internet. Oh, well, what does it matter? Well, they don't understand that all the information is filtered. They don't understand the amount of censorship that's going on right now. They don't understand the whole you can't say whatever the hell you want to say. And that's a big problem, you know? So, yeah, we're going to see a real big kind of pivot out of this really controlled, centered, centralized system to more decentralized platforms, like even what we're seeing with Parlor coming up, with Three Speak. There's quite a few Telegram. You know, there's quite a few platforms that are really bumping right now that are promoting free speech. And I know they're not all perfect yet. I've heard, you know, both horror stories and great things about Parlor, and I've heard horror stories and great things about a lot of the different kind of up and coming platforms. But that's again, after this is when we're really learning to perfect decentralization. So we
Did
have to
you
go through that learning curve.
did you hear what happened to Ticketmaster?
Oh yeah. No, fuck Ticketmaster. I'm a musician, so I've always hated Ticketmaster. But
But
they're
what
going to get
happened
what
to him
they
was they
deserve.
tried to say that you couldn't go to their events unless you had a vaccine record,
Yep.
and the people got together and said that's some bullshit, and Ticketmaster ended up changing their policy back to what it was before, and that's kind of what I see with Jupiter and Saturn entering Aquarius. There's way more power in we the people
Yep.
than there is in
These big
one.
technocratic
Yeah,
bullshit experiences and like governing bodies. That's what they become, right? They become these kind of governing bodies, and people don't realize the power that they have yet. And we're getting to the point where you either have to realize it or it's going to be too late. And that's really what I think, this Jupiter Saturn conjunction is going to bring, is that awareness of how important it is to
absolutely.
not have the amount of power that these technocratic uh, organizations and corporations have, and realizing the importance of, you know, putting the power back in the hands of the people. And that, that's a great thing about blockchain technology and cryptocurrency and decentralization and decentralized platforms, is the power is back into the people, right? No one has singular control over it. And that's how it should be, ultimately. I don't believe in total communism. I don't believe in socialism. But when it comes to something as powerful as a tool of the internet, the people need to have the power. Absolutely. Not ultimately, that's true democracy. So
That thing you posted on your story the other day, it was like, here's a signed permission slip that you can have Thanksgiving dinner with your family. It was like the Declaration,
yeah, the
Constitution. Yeah.
Constitution. Yeah, exactly. And I
That's
posted
exactly.
another one today with the Canadian Charter of Rights, because we don't have a constitution. We have the
Oh,
Charter
yeah.
of Rights, which is our equivalent, basically.
That's good to know. Yeah, but it's like when I've been watching videos of people like standing up to police officers, asserting their rights, and watching these police officers be very confused about, like, they don't even really know the law. And it's like it's really up to us as citizens to know the law and the regulations of where we live, or else we are giving away our power by not knowing those things.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, the more we take our power back, both as individuals and collectively, the better off we'll all be, ultimately. So,
Awesome.
any final notes to wrap us up here?
Sagittarius season is about freedom. Sagittarius season is about finding out what it is that you actually want to do, because you can get rid of these small-minded perspectives, these perspectives of, well, I'll make a little now and save up. You can actually say, like, I'll make a lot now and then save up. Like there's a level of worthiness that comes with Sagittarius. There's a level of discernment about where you want to go, what kind of things you want to do, what kind of daily habits you want to have, what kind of philosophies you want to preach, what kind of beliefs you hold. And all of these things, these minor things, like, I will start eating a healthier diet. These very little things snowball into very large things. And it's just like your life. Your life is a giant story that happens each day. And Sagittarius season, it's about being aware, it's about being conscious, it's about being present while you're experiencing it rather than just letting it go past you. It's about being tapped into being awakened inside of this dream that we live. And so this season, it's important for you to really just ground yourself. The best thing that we can all do for ourselves is ground ourselves before we go and get emotional, argumentative, before we get to a point of just righteously stating our ideologies in a way that's just like regurgitation. It's about getting back to like what you know to be true.
Exactly. Exactly. Coming back into the truth, I would say, is the real big core of this season. And there's going to be a lot of rearrangement before that can actually happen. And that's what we're going to see with these eclipses and these big transitions that we're going to experience this season. So hold on tight. Get ready for this crazy rodeo show of truth and knowledge and wisdom all being exposed. And ultimately, remember your truth, come back into that. And when you can come back into that, especially during those eclipses, like I said, it's not about controlling the outer with eclipses, it's about learning how to control the inner. And when you can control the inner, then you can flow through the outer a lot more easily. And that's where it becomes enjoyable. That's where it becomes fun and an adventure. It is choose your own adventure after all. And we're all choosing our adventure in every moment based off of where our awareness and our thoughts and our minds are. So, with this season, I will bid you a great season. Happy birthday to all the beautiful Sagittariuses of this world. We love you and your long, luscious legs, and
And your body full of tattoos.
a body full of tattoos.
Every Sag rising or every Sag I know is just covered head to toe in tattoos. This is my
Really?
free expression. Yeah, I know a bunch of Sag that are covered in tattoos. I love
Wow.
it.
That's
Yeah.
funny because the only Sag risings I know have very few tattoos.
Uh,
Actually, like one of my most, I would deem most Sag rising friend, but he's super Aquarius too. Maybe that's why. But he, yeah, I don't think he has a single tattoo actually.
well, he'll get there.
Yeah, maybe when he's 60, he'll just have like a streak where he's just like, I need to get a bunch of tattoos now.
Mhm.
But anyways, thanks for tuning in once again with us live. And if you're watching the replay, thanks so much for joining us here on the YouTubes and or Periscope. And if you're listening to the podcast, make sure you subscribe. And if you're listening on YouTube, make sure you hit the love button below, the like button, and subscribe so that you're aware of the future episodes as we come out with them. And I will be also relaunching the Patreon coming up soon. So that'll be during this season as well, which is super exciting, which will give you an opportunity to support the podcast moving forward and give you access to exclusive videos that will not be posted on YouTube. So without further ado, Brent and I got a cheers on this, buddy. Thank you for taking a moment to be mindful with us.
It's been a pleasure to be on here, Will. Thanks for having me again for I think it's actually now our third
I
Sagittarius
think so
season
too.
podcast. That's
I think so too.
an amazing feat, man.
It is. Yep. I'm ready for infinite amounts of Sagittarius this seasons. I need to get at
Mhm.
least, how old am I? I need to get at least, I would say, maybe 100 more in. If I can get 100 more in, I'll be living a damn good life.
We'll just meet up in the next life. Do it then.
Yeah. Alrighty. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next season, my friends.